Hey, good morning, Rachna.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, how are you from Kenya?
Kenya, yeah. I live in Nairobi. I'm great. Really good, thank you. Excited.
It's amazing, isn't it? So we're connecting for the first time in how long? How many years?
I'm trying to do the calculations now. So it's been 10 years since I've been back in Kenya from England. And I first met Lisa in 2000, it would have been 2002.
Wow,
2002, 2003. So
that
almost
is,
20 years ago.
that is like laughably a long time ago, isn't it? It's just crazy.
Yeah, it would have been basically it would have been around my first or second year at university.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we met in, I taught in a sport at a health club in Wandsworth in southwest London. And I have to say, it was a really, really great class. I really enjoyed teaching it. And actually, getting up early Saturday morning to teach classes is, like I would really struggle with weekend classes because I taught on a Sunday morning as well. I did like 2 to 3 back-to-back classes on a Sunday morning. So I kind of tried to keep Saturdays as a sacred space for my family. For my kids were very little at the time, and it was, the school week is that, and I never really let them. In fact, we didn't do weekend like sports stuff because I used to look at parents going, "Oh my God, you're knackered from the week, and then you're doing football and ballet and all this stuff on Saturday morning." So I just would say, we don't get dressed Saturday morning. It's just pajamas all day. Do what you like, relax, rest, and very much a kind of family time. So when I took on that class, I was giving up something really special as well to me. But I think at that time, when I look back, I can't remember how old they were, but I think they were old enough to be left, like with my daughter, at least the older one. So I could just nip out. They probably weren't even up. I could nip out, go and do the class, come back
It
with
was like
breakfast.
7 o'clock, wasn't it? 7 a.m. or something like
No, it wasn't that early. It would never be that early. Never. I think it was more like
that.
9:30.
Time it really was. I remember that studio. I remember the floors, the mirrors. It was such an amazing class. I don't think I ever missed a Saturday morning yoga
No,
class.
the weekend classes were always really popular. Like they were always busy. But that club, that Esporta class was, very young, vibrant, group, and a lovely kind of cohort of a lovely community. And I'd like to say all my classes are like that. They've all got their own special thing, but this was a particular favourite. And we used to play, or I used to play, like sometimes we'd have like a different vibe class. We'd have like a Prince class or
Yeah,
or a Bob Marley class. And I was like,
yeah.
okay, what kind of music should we have today? And and everybody was really fit and strong, so you could do like a very strong class. So it was just lovely. And then a few friendships come from that as well, or not necessarily friendships, but nice connections as people came on retreats with me, and they became friends with each other, and they kind of had nice little social groups and stuff like that. So it was nice to sort of see that grow as well. And then I remember you leaving, and I remember when you went, you decided to go to Kenya and had this plan and this vision. I was thinking like, wow, that's like so together. I remember it. I remember thinking like, oh my God.
There was a bit of a transition in between because we started the classes at Esporta and then we moved to the little church room in Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And even that, I mean, from Wandsworth to Wimbledon, I used to cycle just to get to that class, and that was an evening class.
Up that really steep hill.
And even that room was just, honestly, it would stay with me forever. It was amazing. And then shortly after that, I left.
Yeah. So I left. I had this opportunity to take on another teacher's business. She was leaving the country, and she just said, "Would you like all my classes?" I'm like, yeah, that'd be really nice. So I had this big leap as well, and I left working in health clubs and and came into a very different groups of people, really, which was, you know, a big move for me. So yeah, that would have been a long way for you to cycle and going up that hill. No wonder you're super fit. And, yeah, so I remember, and that again is always lovely when a student follows you to another place, which is not in their locality. And then then you left, and I remember being in awe, thinking like, oh my, she's really got a step, you know, she knows, that's someone who knows what she wants from life, definitely. This is what I thought. And then I you know, we connected on Facebook or something, and I saw your, you know, I saw someone that I knew from my classes and from a distance grow into this very beautiful person. I saw this transition through social media. So when we sometimes think of social media as being a real negative, but you know, you can use it positively. Absolutely. And so we didn't really, it's not like we were buddies, but we've always had a little, there's that little hook, if you like.
Yeah.
And so I knew that you told me you were starting teacher training, you become a teacher, and again I watched that evolve. And it's not like I follow you a lot, because I don't follow anyone. I'm not really on social media particularly. And then just through lockdown, I've seen your little clips on Instagram, and they're really nice. I was thinking like, gosh, she's really got her stuff together. And then the more I kind of watched them, and I wasn't watching them a lot, so I don't want you to think it's just like, oh, it's kind of a bit creepy.
No, not at all.
But I would watch them, and then I'd go like, oh my God, I remember teaching. I'm sure that's not like, it's not like I'm sure she's got that from me. It was this thing of like, oh my God, I'm having these memories of being in the club, in a sport, and doing like arm balances and handstands, which you're really good at. And and it was kind of, and then I did watch one of your lessons, something with a bit more detail.
Yeah.
It reminded me of my teaching. And I don't mean that in a sense of like she took my words, because that's exactly what you should, you know, this is what we do as teachers, this is what we do as people. You know, I want my students to take my words and hold them and remember. But it was the words about the banders.
Yes.
It was, and it made me realise that I don't teach that any longer. And it was really sad for me. I had to really sort of think about this thing, like I've lost touch with my own root. So this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you about, you know, the journey of being a teacher, and that we're always learning and developing and changing and growing. And I kind of just went into this little space in my own space, like what would just be said, like, how come? Why have I lost that?
Yeah.
Why have I lost that? It was really to do with the banders, and I was like, I don't teach these any longer. And I think a lot of the time as a teacher, we get caught. You're still very much in the early days of this, which is, you know, it's lovely. And I think because I don't teach that many people anymore, and I kind of know the people that I do teach very well, because I don't really have new people coming to me all the time, and I tend to just teach privately. It's very small and niche. But I think for a lot of people that I teach, they're not interested in that. They're not interested in this. And what I've done is diluted myself as a teacher. And that's not a good thing. This is not a good thing. So it was really lovely to
say that, because I wonder whether, given we used to be in a studio together, you teaching me 20 years ago, you know, technology, people's lives, their connection with this modern day living wasn't as evolved as perhaps it is now. I remember you did that one podcast all those years ago, if you remember it.
Yeah, I do. I still use it. Yeah.
And I remember I used to use that one podcast every single lunchtime in my lawyer's office. When I had a lunch break, I would go break out my mat in a room downstairs, and I would use the same podcast every lunchtime, and I never got bored of it. But I think what I realize now is, compared to before, I feel like people are less tolerant of what it means to take a journey, right? And what I'm learning is, and I'm very specific about my approach, and it's the yoga on one side, the functional yoga, and then I'm a postural alignment therapist as well. And I say to people, I'm in this space where it's very client-led, which means you have to do the work. I'm here to guide you, and I'm here to offer you the tools, but it really requires for you to do the work. And I remember being in your classes where you were just that, your words, your cues, your knowledge, I remember specific guidance was more about listening than it was always about doing. And I think from that, I developed this ability early on to feel. So when we're talking about the bandhas, I understood from a very early stage what they felt like, not necessarily just doing them.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's kind of what I've taken over the last 20 years is people have diluted their ability to want to learn and to want to do this as a journey, as opposed to just
yeah.
And I think this band-aid solution type approach is very much what is out there at the moment. And I think it's hard for us as teachers not to kind of be like, okay, I should just, make this a 45-minute class and just give them what they need and that's it. It's hard.
It is difficult. It's always a difficult. That's a common thread for teachers, because also we are people who are going through our own journey and using yoga as a tool to support ourselves, and it's something that we found works for us. It's very difficult to, sometimes, you have to hold your own space, and then you're holding the space for your students as well. And with respect, I am still learning, and it's really nice to sort of. Like I said, to see your work and you teach me, to remind me of this importance. And then what we were talking about earlier about, people not asking why. And I was thinking, how come I've stopped doing this? And it's not my students' fault, it's my fault. Or is it still important to me? Why am I not doing this? Why am I not teaching it? Because I remember when I came out of the health club environment into this private class, with an established business with lots of people in there, I was really firm with them at the beginning, because I'd seen the teacher, who was also somebody that I'd worked with for a long time. I knew how she taught, and I think she'd got into a place as well as being just very comfortable delivering for the class what they wanted. And I said, look, this is what I do. And this is really important to me. And it was always about the bandhas. And I'm going to keep repeating this. And I'm going to use these Sanskrit words because that's the name of them. There isn't another word, but you could say core stability. You could say whatever Nike was saying at the time. You could say all of that, but this is what it is. And you need to understand it. And then, like you said, you feel the posture. You can actually work better when you're connected to yourself. I mean, that's a statement in itself, really, isn't it? So I was in this kind of thinking, like, what have I stopped? Why and what and how? So we were just having a little chat before, and I was talking about, like, obviously I knew, like, 20 years ago or something now. So it's they're a long time. So obviously I'm older, and I went through this transition of, turning 50 and doing all these different things and changing the way I work because I want to do different things. And also, this big thing about going through the menopause, which wasn't a big thing when I went through it, but I was going through these other things. Like I had these deaths in my family, and I went through this big period of grief. I went through a big period of upheaval. I, ended a long-term relationship. I ended a lot when, and I think anyone who's lost their loved ones, like my brother was, when you go through that kind of loss, you do lose. There's nothing normal in your life any longer. You lose everything, or you lose such a big part of yourself, and you have to kind of go through that. Grief is this. It's a long journey. It's not over in 6 weeks. It's not done when the funeral is done. And then also turning 50 is obviously a big milestone in our lives if we're lucky enough to get to that age. And then my children were leaving home. So I kind of think, when I think about why did I stop using the banders, I think it's because I was doing other things.
Yeah.
And that sometimes you have to, in that letting go of my stuff and my, coming to terms with being like, I'm the head of my family now. There is no one above me. There are no elders to call me out, which is why I have a couple of close friends who I say, you have to hold me accountable to myself, because I've got no one to tell me when I've lost the plot. So I don't have the lineage any longer. It's just a memory.
It's quite
So I think that's kind of what happened. And so it's really lovely. This is like, again, I'm bestowing massive compliments on you, but I think it's like, you never know where the learning is going to happen. You never know when the teacher turns up, and it's always the right teacher at the right time. And so that's what I want to say to you, is like, you come in, this through Instagram, through this long drawn out thing, and it's only because I know you that I can have this conversation with you. But I do think it's important to share this with students, and because we're not seeing people regularly, we're not in rooms having one-to-one time with people where you can perhaps impart a little bit of wisdom or hope and support. I think me doing these recordings with my students and other teachers is a way of kind of giving that to the bigger, to whoever tunes into it, really.
The universe at large.
So whoever might be listening. But it's, so I'm back on the banders.
No, it's so funny, because I always say, and I think this is something that you taught us in class all those years ago, was there's a journey that we take off the mat, and there's a journey that we take on the mat. And there's so much synchronicity happening in both of these aspects, that you ever have days where you get on the mat and it's just not quite, clicking, or things are just not feeling like they're sort of, sinking in, or like you're moving, but there's something a little bit sort of off kilter, but you still move and you still finish and you still get off the mat and think, yeah, okay, I did what I came here to do, and I connected. I got out of it what I needed at that time. And it's the same thing off the mat. You talk about, it's not necessarily using connection, it's just you need that reminder of, with all those things happening in your life, we can lose a little bit of our center. It throws you off. You're being pulled in one direction, your emotions are in a different direction, your physical self is in a different direction. Everything is, in different dimensions. And so when you say that you've kind of like gone off that connection a little bit with the banders, it's just that. It's what's happening off the mat, what's happening on the mat really just have some relevance. And I say to people all the time, I'm like,
Okay, so Rachna has frozen. This is the crazy time that we live in, frozen in Africa. So let's just wait and see what happens. We might just, what's going on? She's coming back. You just have to wait. It's always that thing, isn't it, when you're completely in the moment of wisdom, and then something shuts down, and we stop hearing, and the essence of time in this time of COVID, where we're having to be more patient and really slow down and just take a few breaths and wait for that connection to come back again. Slowly, living slowly. So let's just wait and see. I'm enjoying listening to how I'm being taught by my student, by a former student. And it reminds me of, the fact that, as in the yoga world, we're pretty much all in this together, and we should all be working as one. So growing in different ways together, like a garden. There's new shoots and there's established trees, and it all kind of moves along. So I'm hoping that we make this connection again, but I'm thinking just now that we might draw it to a little end, and then perhaps reconnect with some more wisdom at another time. Well, see if we have a message. So, deep breaths, accepting life as it happens, being present with everything that goes on. So I'm going to say, with thanks, thank you for listening, thank you for being here. I'm going to try and reconnect with Rachna, and let's see what happens. Thank you.